Senate Bill 227 by Senator Mitchell, an act relating to grand juries.
Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased to present SB 227, which prohibits the use of a criminal grand jury when evidence indicates a peace officer's use of excessive force or a firearm may have contributed to the death of a person being detained or arrested by that peace officer. The grand jury system has recently come under fire nationally in the wake of several incidents of officer-involved deaths. To the public, the outcome of the criminal jury proceedings can seem unfair, lack transparency, and inexplicable. Again, the criminal grand jury system is not transparent and is not adversarial in nature. No judges or defense attorneys participate. The rules of evidence do not apply. There are no cross-examination of witnesses, and there are no objections. In researching this topic, I've been struck by the lack of available information on how criminal grand juries are used in our state. There appears to be no data on the number of cases that are heard, the kinds of cases that are heard, or the outcomes of those proceedings. And yet the decisions rendered by these juries have critical public policy implications. Some counties, including my home county of Los Angeles and Santa Clara County, have adopted policies that preclude the criminal grand jury being used in cases where an officer's actions may be the cause of the death of a suspect. However, these policies have been instituted at the will of the county's district attorney and are subject to change at any time. The use of the criminal grand jury has fostered an atmosphere of suspicion that threatens to compromise the nature of our justice system and, as such, is not serving its intended purpose as a tool of and for the community. The President recently addressed the deaths of young black men in the hands of police, saying it was part of a, quote, slow rolling crisis, end quote, that demanded a period of national soul searching to resolve. Not every public safety and criminal justice problem is an easy one to solve, but I believe this one is. The public has a right to know that such a grave allegation is taken seriously and is investigated thoroughly. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully rise in opposition to this bill. In Riverside County, we have had a good history of utilizing the criminal grand jury to bring corrupt elected officials to justice. There are those that could also argue that there is a cozy relationship between county sheriffs and county district attorneys. I think that the criminal grand jury is just another tool. One of the advantages of a criminal grand jury is that you bypass the preliminary hearing, so you actually get to justice even faster. And certainly a district attorney in a respective county is not bound by the actions of a criminal grand jury if a criminal grand jury doesn't find the grounds on which to indict a district attorney in the respective county can file charges. So I believe this is a due process issue, and certainly I don't condone any activities of public safety officials using force inappropriately on any citizens in this country. But I think this is just another tool to quickly bring those officers, if they are found to be allegedly using force excessively, it brings them to justice that much faster. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Nielsen.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I urge a no vote. Such legislation as this is trying to capitalize on some moments of the time, some of which are in dispute, some of which are probably very real, all of which will cause corrections in the systems. But the grand jury is a very important and valuable tool, a seasoned and established tool. And remember who the grand juries are. They are peers. They are peers. And they do afford due process. And sometimes when we consider legislation, we need to consider, are we fixing something that's broken? Or we're just emotionally responding. I've got a list here of a number of officers who, in fact, were prosecuted for, I call it moral inturpitude, but for acts unbecoming, under the color of authority, which is a very important burden for one in law enforcement, not to use their, quote, color of authority. And they were prosecuted through the grand jury system. My point is, it works. We don't need to fix anything. This will take care of itself. And let's keep in mind, this is about justice.
Thank you. Senator Bell.
Yes, where lethal force is used, I think we have to really focus on a process that involves transparency and accountability to keeping the trust of the public with our law enforcement officials. The criminal grand jury system in California does not have that transparency. It is not adversarial. There's no judges, defense attorneys. The rules of evidence do not necessarily apply. There are no cross-examinations of witnesses, no objections. When actions of a peace officer result in the death of a member of the public, it's crucial we have those transparency in the proceedings. In these cases, the secretive nature of the grand jury is not appropriate, and that's why in Santa Clara County we do not have that system. It undermines the public's trust in our system of justice. I want to thank the author for limiting this to narrowly crafting the bill to address only those cases where lethal force is used. This is an important reform, I urge, and I vote on this.
Senator De Leon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I too rise to support SB 227, Senator Mitchell's measure. Cities across our nation are embroiled in conflict related to officer-involved shootings and other instances of excessive force. Walter Scott and Freddie Gray are among the latest and most recognized victims, but their names top a long list, a very long list that is growing at a very sickening pace. Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Oscar Grant, and countless others. Even to a casual observer of the news, they must be struck by the all too familiar headlines: unarmed man killed by police. Too often, these are very poor African American and Latino boys and men, and those who are mentally ill, like the case in the city of Fullerton. Charges are rarely brought and convictions are few and far between, even when damning evidence emerges of excessive force or gross negligence on behalf of law officers. These events most often occur in communities that already have tenuous relationships with law enforcement for a whole variety of reasons. Shortly before his death, Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech entitled "The Other America." In it, he said that a riot is the language of the unheard. The bill by itself cannot give all the unheard communities a voice, but it can begin to open our eyes and ears to the challenge of police violence in these communities. And it can give these communities a right to a fair and open legal recourse. Greater transparency. This is what the author of this measure is asking for, is greater transparency in the court proceedings surrounding instances of violence. And this will give communities a much-needed seat at the table. I don't believe this is anti-district attorney. I don't believe this is anti-local law enforcement. This measure will help restore public trust in our law enforcement officers who do an outstanding job every single day to protect our communities and ensure that we entrust with our protections are held to the highest standards of public service. This measure is about transparency. This measure is about opening up the grand jury procedure. Because quite frankly, no one really knows what's happening in those grand juries. The selection process, the abilities of no one having the ability to have counsel in the grand jury. It's about transparency, it's about accountability, it's about giving voice, especially what we've seen throughout the whole country, which is very sickening. With that, Mr. President, I lend my support to SB 227.
Thank you. Members, additional debate or discussion on this item? Senator Mitchell, would you like to close?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues, for raising issues of concern. I'll, in closing, Mr. President, try to make two specific points. First of all, as policymakers, we are not bound or limited in our policymaking by actions that have already taken place in our state. A part of our responsibility as policymakers is to look across the board at sound policy that makes sense for California, whether it's reactionary to a California incident or not. We do that every day in any number of bills that we hear on this very floor. It's about policy making and setting a policy that's good for the state. Secondly, I'll say that there's a national debate going on right now with regard to the relevance today of the grand jury system. It's a antiquated system based on a British principle that is no longer used in many parts of the world. This bill does not attempt to take on the entire grand jury system, but is very narrowly crafted to focus on incidents of police-involved shootings or excessive force that lead to death. It's even narrowly defined in terms of which peace officers this would apply to. So in closing, again, the criminal grand jury proceedings are not adversarial. No judges or defense attorneys participate. The rules of evidence don't apply. There are no cross-examinations of witnesses and there are no objections. How prosecutors explain the law to the jurors and what prosecutors say about the evidence is subject to no oversight. The proceedings are shrouded in secrecy. For those reasons, I ask for your support of SB 227.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen? Anderson? No. Bates? No. Bell? Aye. Berryhill? No. Block? Aye. Cannella? De Leon? Aye. Fuller? Gaines? No. Galgioni? Aye. Hall? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hertzberg? Aye. Hill? Aye. Hueso? Huff? Jackson? Lada? Aye. Leno? Aye. Leyva? Aye. Liu? McGuire? Aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mitchell? Aye. Monning? Aye. Morlock? Aye. No. Morrell? No. Wynn? No. Nilsson? No. Pan? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Roth? Runner? No. Stone? No. Vidak? No. Wykowski? Aye. Wolk? Wolk, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Allen? Aye. Cannella? Fuller? Hueso? Aye. Huff? Jackson? Aye. Liu? Roth? No.
Ayes 23, noes 12, the measure passes. Moving to file item 18, Senator McGuire. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 133 by Senator McGuire, an act relating to alcoholic beverages.
Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Good morning. Excuse me. SB 133 is a technical cleanup measure meant to update an antiquated code section, which was last amended in 1955 to reflect subsequent changes that consolidated and updated oversight responsibilities of the California Pure Foods Act. This law authorizes the Department of Public Health to regulate food processors. A winery, for example, is a processor because it takes fresh grapes and processes them into wine, which is why we are focused on this issue because of the Sonoma and Napa wine region. The Department of Food and Agriculture is tasked with the duty to safeguard fresh produce, and the ABC requires the chief of the Bureau of Food and Drug Inspection to notify the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control of the conviction of any licensee of a food safety violation. The department, in turn, is then required to investigate as to whether such violation constitutes grounds for the suspension or revocation of the license of the licensee. This provision of statute contains several outdated references. For example, there's no longer a chief of the Bureau of Food and Drug Inspection, and the California Pure Foods Act, referenced by the statute, was combined with the Sherman Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Law of 1970. Statutes that contain outdated references potentially confuse the enforcement of important public safety programs. SB 133 replaces the outdated references with the correct references, and this bill replaces the Chief of the Bureau of Food and Drug Inspection with the Director of the Department of Public Health, and the California Pure Foods Act with the Sherman Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Law. In closing, sir, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. I. Anderson. I. Bates. I. Bell. I. Berryhill. I. Block. I. Canella. I. De Leon. I. Fuller. Gaines. I. Galgiani. I. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Hueso. I. Huff. I. Jackson. I. Lara.
Aye.
I. Leno. I. Leyva. I. Liu. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. I. Morrell. I. Wynn. I. Nielsen. Pan. I. Pavley. I. Roth. I. Runner. I. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wachowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Call the absent members.
Fuller. Liu. Nielsen.
Ayes 36, no 0. The measure passes. Moving to file item 20, Senator Block, not at his desk. Pass on file. File item 21, Senator Vidak. Pass on file. File item 22, Senator Hueso. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 415 by Senator Hueso, an act relating to elections.
Senator Hueso.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am proud to introduce SB 415, the California Voter Participation Rights Act. This bill will push local governments to consolidate their elections with statewide races only if off-year elections result in chilling voter participation. Recent studies by Common Cause, the Green Light Institute, and other academics have shown that consolidating elections is a good way to increase voter participation as much as 36%. At the same time, consolidation will provide significant savings to local taxpayers who are currently paying millions of dollars for low turnout races. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Bates. No. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. No. Block. Aye. Canella. No. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. No. Galgiani. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Aye. Huff. No. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leyva. Aye. Liu. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. No. Morrell. No. Wynn. No. Nielsen. No. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. No. Stone. No. Vidak. No. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Anderson. No. Fuller. Galgiani. Aye. Liu.
Ayes 24, noes 13. The measure passes. Moving to file item 23, Senator Wachowski. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 662 by the Committee on Environmental Quality, an act relating to recycling and making appropriation therefore.
Senator Wachowski.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, this is the Environmental Quality Committee's annual omnibus bill. It's technical and clarifying amendments. One deals with Cal Recycle and making payments. Another is when the annual report is due to the legislature. I urge an aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there any objection to utilizing our previous unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 37, no 0. The measure passes. Moving to file item 24, Senator Berryhill. Pass on file. File item 25, Senator Hertzberg. Pass on file. File item 26, Senator Leyva. Pass on file. File item 27, Senator Monning. Pass on file. File item 28, Senator Pavley. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 39 by Senator Pavley, an act relating to vehicles and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Senator Pavley.
Thank you very much, members. Many years ago, I had carried an HOV lane bill to incentivize the purchase of hybrid vehicles. That was the yellow sticker program. That yellow sticker program had ended in 2011. All those hybrids who had access to the HOV lane have ended. They're not in the HOV lane. They're joining all of us in the regular lanes. But there's been a second program in the last several years. It's called the Green Sticker Program. That was to incentivize the next generation of new technology and vehicles, the plug-in hybrids, right? The gasoline electric cars. And the goal is to eventually get motorists more comfortable with dealing with driving an electric car, but there right now is some range anxiety, not enough charging stations. Battery storage is an issue, but we keep moving the public in acceptance of these new, cleaner, fuel-efficient vehicles. So this particular bill gives the last 15,000 stickers, decals, just like we did in the yellow sticker program, to those vehicles or those consumers who wish to purchase plug-in hybrids. It has done a lot to increase the knowledge and interest and information in the consumers to go towards an all-electric car to meet our clean air attainment goals. You know, much of the state has a problem with air quality, and we have issues with the federal government as far as getting gas tax money if we don't do something to clean up our air. You may ask, does this clog the HOV lanes? I want to share with you that Caltrans has the ability to end the program if they feel that's significantly causing the congestion in HOV lanes. But in most cases, it's about 2% of all the traffic in HOV lanes is taken up by the plug-ins or other kinds of electrical vehicles. Zero-emission vehicles, all electric cars, always have and will continue to have access to the HOV lanes. So please join me in allowing the last 15 decals to go out the door, incentivize consumers to purchase those plug-in vehicles, and this program will end the decal program probably for all intents and purposes. Ask for your aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of SB 39. Proud owner of 2 electric cars. Certainly share the concern about range anxiety with the first purchase that I made. But these plug-ins and these electric cars are, as you know, very expensive. There are some federal and local incentives for people to buy them. They're still very expensive, out of the reach of most middle America, although we are seeing a new generation of electrics that are coming on the market very shortly that have a larger range and are less expensive. And I think we need to provide incentives for our constituencies to purchase these alternative energy cars. It amounts to cleaner air and reduces our dependence on foreign oil. So I support the measure, the bill, and applaud the senator for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. President, I rise in opposition to this bill. I am concerned about the rule of unintended consequences. Orange County has 25% of the carpool lanes in this state. And recently, the federal government approved MAP 21, which says that if you're not moving at least 45 miles per hour in the carpool lanes at peak periods, then that's a degradation issue, and you have to come up with solutions to fix that problem. I agree that currently we have 2% of the cars in the carpool lanes that are electric, but I have 2 concerns. The first is it did add to the problem of congestion in Orange County, which then had the federal government imposing on Caltrans to do something about our carpool lanes, which meant that they wanted to convert them from HOV to HOT, which was very insulting to the residents of Orange County because they have self-help county. We are a self-help county. We've approved Measure M. We approved the sales tax. We have approved these roads, and now we're being told that they're going to be taken away, and we have to pay a toll to use the lanes that we paid for to build. Also, I'm a little concerned that we are incentivizing electric cars. No offense, Senator Stone, but we don't get any revenue from electronic-powered cars. We're trying to fix our transportation issues in this state, and we need to rely on gas tax for that at this time. So I think we've incentivized enough, and I'm opposed to this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Members, additional debate or discussion on this item? Would a distinguished senator from Agoura Hills like to close?
Thank you for recognizing my hometown, best city in California, Agoura Hills. I shouldn't have said that before I asked people to vote, right? I love everyone's other hometown cities equally. I would like you to join me in incentivizing the purchase of these plug-in hybrids. They are paying their fair share because they're not zero-emission vehicles, they're partial zero-emission vehicles. This bill is sponsored by the Alliance of Automobile Manufacturers, Association of Global Automakers, and has the support of a variety of other organizations. It's a modest increase of the green sticker program that will end in just a few years as we incentivize consumers to purchase the cleanest vehicle possible. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Bates. No. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. Aye. Galgioni. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Aye. Huff. No. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leyva. Aye. Liu. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Monning. Morlock. No. Morrell. Wynn. Aye. Nielsen. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. Aye. Stone. Aye. Vidak. No. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Call the absent members.
Anderson. No. Berryhill. No. Fuller. Hancock. Aye. Liu. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Morrell. No.
Ayes 29, no 7 on the urgency. Ayes 29, no 7 on the measure. The measure passes. Moving to file item 29, Senator Gaines. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 271 by Senator Gaines, an act relating to unmanned aircraft systems.
Senator Gaines.
Great, thank you, Mr. President and members. Today, I bring you Senate Bill 271. This bill would make it an infraction to fly unmanned aircraft, properly known as drones, over public schools during school hours and during extracurricular activity. I want to clarify, it does give authority to the principal to lay out these rules. Each principal would have the ability to make that determination at the local level. But it would make it illegal to capture images of the school and children during those school hours. As drone technology gains popularity among the public, the potential for misuse and abuse will grow along with it. This bill has the sole intent of protecting our children from potential harm. This bill has received no opposition. I would ask for your aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there objection to utilizing our previous unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 37, no 0. The measure passes. Moving to file item 30, Senator Bell, you prepared to take up, Senator? Pass on file. File item 31, Senator Jackson. Pass on file. File item 33, Senator Hill. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 438 by Senator Hill, an act relating to motor vehicles.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SB 438 simply raises the reportable property damage threshold for traffic accidents from $750 to to $1,000. The property damage threshold that characterizes an accident as reportable has not been updated since 2002. The DMV collects more than 54,000 reports a month from drivers, and this increase in the threshold will certainly decrease the burden on the DMV and California drivers. There's no opposition to this measure. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, members.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there any objection to utilizing our previous unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 37, no 0, the measure passes. File item 34, Senator Allen, not at his desk. File item 35, Senator Mendoza. Pass on file. File item 36, Senator Pan. Pass on file. File item 37, Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 539 by Senator Hueso, an act relating to renewable energy resources.
Thank you once again, Madam President. Senators, SB 539 is a code cleanup bill. It removes a section of the Public Utility Code that has been preempted by the Federal Powers Act. In addition, the code section makes geothermal less flexible than other renewables, which may hinder its attractiveness on the market. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there objection to utilizing our previous unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 37, no 0, the measure passes. File item 38, Senator Mendoza. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 542 by Senator Mendoza, an act relating to workers' compensation.
Senator Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I'm here to present SB 542. In 2012, SB 863 required the Division of Workers' Compensation to create a fee schedule for home health care services. However, SB 863 was passed on passed a policy decision. The policy decision was made that the fee schedule be based on in-home supportive services fee schedule. But there was a new RAND study that showed that IHSS fee schedule isn't broad enough to, and recommended that we include additional fee schedules. So SB 542 would permit the division to follow the RAND's recommendation. Doing this will decrease frictional costs in workers' compensation system. This bill has no opposition and has received unanimous support throughout the policy committee. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, Mr. President.
Thank you. Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there objection to utilizing our previous unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 37, no 0, the measure passes. Moving to file item 39, members. Senator Jackson. Pass on file. File item 40, Senator Wajkowski. Pass on file. File item 41, Senator Mitchell, not at her desk. File item 42, Senator Hernandez. Pass on file. File item 43, Senator Wolk. Secretary, please read.